All right, Saagar, what are you looking at?
Well, I know there are a lot of important stories going on right now, but there's one flying under the radar of all major news items that I haven't been able to stop thinking about. The bizarre war by the Biden administration on nicotine, cigarettes, and by proxy on poorer Americans. Now, of course, I'm gonna start with the obvious. Cigarettes are bad. As for vaping products and for other synthetic nicotine delivery systems that are outside of cigarettes but are increasingly popular, the science is really not in on any of them. I cannot personally imagine it's good for you, but is it bad for you? Or is it just like diet soda or caffeine or many of the other legal substances that people plow into their bodies every day? We don't know. The answer is still not clear. But the answer seems clear enough for the Biden administration, which has effectively declared a full-scale war not only on cigarette smokers, but on nicotine users of all stripes. Much of the actions of the Biden administration reek of class disdain, and the fact that there hasn't been any outcry amongst elites reflects a lot of this too. As long as their drugs of choice are safe, namely alcohol and weed, they don't really care. So let's review the Biden war on nicotine. Things started to pop off in April when they came out and they said they were going to ban menthol cigarettes specifically. They noted correctly that Black Americans are the most likely to smoke menthols, and in some sort of weird nanny state protection way said that flavored cigars and menthols thus must be banned outright. But it appears that outside of elites, they didn't actually ask Black people what they wanted. And it turns out a lot of people who actually work at the community activist level are adamantly opposed to this ban. Eric Garner's own mother correctly noted banning menthols would lead to more police interactions between cops and people like her son, and even Al Sharpton correctly noted that with weed legalized and basically unregulated at the state level, it makes no sense that, quote, grandma can't smoke her cools, but Jamal can smoke his weed. I mean, the man has a point. But that nanny state move was just the beginning, with some new announcements that came out this week. The Biden FDA is moving to ban literally all nicotine from cigarettes from now and to try and get millions to quit smoking. The FDA commissioner said that it would be the most targeted action against cigarettes in 25 years. And look, everyone can agree, yeah, less people should smoke. Everybody also knows it's a very difficult thing to quit smoking, meaning that alternatives need to obviously be around in some form. That's why it's especially puzzling that the same day they announced that the FDA would also be banning Juul e-cigarettes across the nation, which is 42% of the e-cigarette market in the United States nuked overnight. So at the same time that they're going after nicotine in cigarettes, they're also setting the ground for a war on nicotine delivery methods themselves, starting with Juul. Reporting from inside the government reveals that there was no real pretext for banning Juul as opposed to letting others be sold, except for politics. Parents groups just hated Juul because many teenagers began using Juul years ago. Thus, Juul got targeted and made an example of to ensure that anti-smoking and anti-nicotine groups will continue to back Biden and the FDA. That's about as corrupt deal as exists. To return to the broader point, who is this impacting? The US general population smoking rate is 14%, but amongst poor people, it's actually as high as 1/3. Education is the best proxy by class that shows that people with no degree or GED are the most likely in America to smoke. It declined significantly after that. Only 4% of people with a graduate degree even smoke cigarettes. As we all saw in South Park's great episode on smoking, if you're stuffing your face full of disgusting processed food and you're obese, do you really have any high ground in telling someone who just got off a shift to not smoke a cigarette, or someone who vapes to relax, or just does it to have a good time? We genuinely do have a massive substance abuse problem in this country, but it is always very telling which ones get dystopian government crackdowns and which ones are just good to go. In fact, I'm gonna make a declaration here. If we're gonna start regulating substances by those that are almost harmful and already legal, why don't we start with alcohol by volume? Alcohol use has gone up so much during the pandemic, we are still trying to figure out exactly how much. At a minimum, tens of thousands of people, extra people in America, are going to die as a result of alcohol use alone. And alcoholism is seeing record rates at treatment centers. Nobody wants to do anything. Why? Well, most people who are elite drink alcohol. A lot of alcohol. Not necessarily the same types that poorer Americans drink, but cocktail culture and functional alcoholism pervades elite spaces. Thus, zero control. Actually, if anything, alcohol taxes are down 40% over the last 30 years. Distilleries and breweries are propping up all over the country. And we appear to just have made our peace with that. Why target poor people then who like to smoke? Or how about this one, and I'll really poke the bear. Legalized weed and the Wild West usage of high-potency THC is causing all sorts of insane psychotic breaks amongst teenagers. It's lowering IQs, skyrocketing emergency room visits with teenagers experiencing symptoms akin to poisoning. That's from the New York Times, by the way. By harm, it is actually easy to deduce that alcohol and THC are way less regulated, free-flowing, and are bad. And yet, the remnant, they continue to go after poor Americans who smoke. The current Biden war on cigarettes and nicotine and the lack of media outrage or even coverage, really, if it just reveals so much about us as a country. The stuff they use is fine. They deserve regulation. The stuff they don't, screw them. Unhealthy rubes. The way to promote health is to make it easier to be healthy by default, rather than just forcing people to go in a certain direction. That's always been the case in America, and it should probably remain the case so. I mean, I just think it's crazy, Crystal. You know, I was talking—
Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.